Call to order if you're ready.
Yeah, we're streaming. Katie is online. She should be able to hear us.
Katie, can you hear us?
Can we wait this way? Or is that-
I can hear you. Hi, everybody. I texted Heather that I'm not going to make any motions since it's hard. I will vote. And if I have questions, I'll text Ike. If no one sees me. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So with that, I will now call to order the organizational meeting of the Saratoga Springs Public Library Board of Trustees. She's gonna go there. First item of business is oath of office for John, but it's did so our second item is election of officers. So we have folks who are willing to serve again, if I have nominations. President, Vice President, or Secretary. We can start with President. Second. Second. All in favor? As in so weird. For Vice President. Is there a second? Thank you, Jean. All in favor? Aye. Secretary. So we will nominate Terry Diggory. Is there a, thank you, Nancy. All in favor? Personnel. Terry said he's willing to serve again, but Frank is the other person on this committee. Is there anybody interested in serving?
Talked, I mean, I said I'd do it if really nobody else wants to do it. It's won't you look forward to working with me on that?
Looks like it's you, Nancy.
Katie says she's having a really hard time hearing. So
Okay. Sorry, I'll use my louder voice. And then, we have the strategic planning committee. I discussed more willing to do it again. There's room for a third person. Really? Yes. We have the branch expansion committee, which is Amy, Nancy, and Eugene. Those folks were willing to stay unless there's someone else who's interested, but we did all talk a little bit here and there, and I didn't have anybody who was anxious to switch places.
Right. Well, and I wasn't sure if this was still an active committee or not, so it's a holdover from last
Yeah,
year.
it's a holdover, but I think if that situation comes forward again, those folks would still like to be involved, so we can keep it the way that it is for now. And then we had one more, I'd like to add something to the agenda, sorry, time. Last month, we created a recruitment and onboarding committee, and that was made up of Terry, Carol, and Nancy. That was just more. And actually, there's also a budget committee, which is myself and nobody else said they were anxious to participate there. So But you're all welcome. I'm able to join you. Great. Anybody have anything else related to committees that we'd like to bring forward? Move on to, annual trustee code of ethics and conflict of interest policy. That's in the packet. If you need a paper copy. Let me know.
If you've got them and signed them, Tanya's collecting them. If you don't have them today, we can get you copies.
Like a copy. Our next segment of business is the meeting and holiday schedule for fiscal year 26-27 and calendar year of 2027. It's in the packet. And just as kind of a reminder for people, the regular board meeting in September is typically rescheduled to the third Monday, so that would be Monday, September 21st. The October meeting, because it falls on Indigenous Peoples' Day, Columbus Day, that is typically rescheduled to the next day, which is Tuesday, the 13th.
And just as a reminder, I meant to add it up here, just so for people to know, if you can see on the screen, but on the paper copy, the third was previously approved by the board, and it's just there to, so that it's for continuity. So
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
yeah, the part that's highlighted in blue on your has already been approved.
Okay.
Was previously. It's the white part, and we generally do about 6 months in advance, just so that we're not starting off the year with a holiday that already preceded the first meeting that we're approving.
And then it looks like National Library Week actually falls at the time
And
of our
right at the right
normal
time
meeting.
this year. So,
No rescheduling needed.
so a couple items that we might want to discuss. We've gotten, when we first recognized Juneteenth, before it was a federal holiday, our recognition of it preceded it becoming a designated federal holiday. Now we're one of the very few places that it actually opens. We might be the only library that actually opens on the holiday. Originally, when we first recognized it, we got some pushback about why are we recognizing this holiday when it's not a federal holiday. And now we're getting some pushback about why are you open on a day when everybody else is closed. And there are some federal holidays that we're open for program reasons. So Martin Luther King Jr. Day, for example, we have traditionally been a big gathering place in the community for people doing the day of service. And so we opened to do that. We opened on Juneteenth this year with the notion that we would be doing Juneteenth related programming related to the holiday. That became difficult to do when it falls on a weekend, and then there are all these other things to do. So it might bear some discussion about whether it is a holiday that we want to continue to be open for, or whether we want to close like we do most of the other celebratory.
What was the attendance like for that day?
For this day, this year, it was the first day of the summer reading program. So that's sort of how we recognize it, but do you know whether it was a slow day or?
So traditionally, the children's room is extremely busy since they started closing school. It tends to be a lot of foot traffic. But not necessarily people who are looking to observe the holiday. It's more people who their kids are home and it's too close to the end of the school year to like go away. The upstairs generally is not that busy. But downstairs, we had the last like 3 years that we've been open, like on a weekday for it, it's been very busy. I don't know that they're observing the holiday here so much, it's just a
Just
place to
coming.
be, yeah.
Plus like Texas closed.
Which is similar to like what President's Day, like it's break week, so people are here. I don't know that they're here for educational purposes, but they're here.
Right.
And some
So
considerations,
staff still get the holiday,
right,
yeah, but it's just not on that day. Some people might get it on
that
that
is,
day.
that is correct. And if it falls, I mean, and anybody who is eligible for, so full-time staff who work, and so this also creates a little bit of difficulty potentially with programming, full-time staff who work on that day, or premium pay, or time and a half vacation time, so there's extra compensation for working on that day. So we tend to, on those holidays that we're open, try to schedule more part-time people rather than full-time people, which then affects the programming, because full-time people are the ones who prepare and present the programs rather than the part-time. So then it becomes a little bit of a scheduling thing. And then when the weekend is on a holiday, people who don't work it, or I'm sorry, on the weekend, get a floating holiday. So they would work a regular, if you work a usual Monday through Friday schedule, then you get a day added to your floating holiday.
Do any of the directors have any advice on that? Switch.
I definitely think that it's about intention. Like if we're in youth services, these are not the kind of holidays that generally program wise people are looking for with their young kids. Like no one wants a 4-year-old to, for these educational things. We have not, like we've tried a lot of different programs through the years and we don't have a great, trying to find something that's fun and friendly, but also solemnly celebrating. So I think it's more about the intention. Like if you're looking to be a place for people to be when they need a place to go, I think we're very well serving that purpose. If you think that we are trying to educate like on the solemn topic, I don't know that I'm meeting that.
Jamie, any thoughts?
No. So we aren't really a destination for programs on that day, having to do with the day.
That is correct.
Where does that take place in the community? At the Y? Is that where they have?
They do have a big Juneteenth celebration there. That seems to be the community gathering space for Juneteenth.
Was that true last year? Or
It was, I think it's been true for the last several years,
Okay.
because it's more of a, like, less than a solemn day, it's more of a celebration day. So it's like an outdoor celebration.
We are open on Indigenous Peoples Day.
That's correct.
Or, I know they. So,
And this might be the same question for those days too. But it's interesting that we haven't gotten any pushback about those days. But this year, when we were, we might have been the only library that was open on the day. We did get some pushback because people thought that it was, at least, I mean, it's very, because it's a 180 from the feedback we got before. Why are you recognizing this day at all? It's the prior feedback, and now it is people are thinking that it's disrespectful to not, because they feel like if we're being open, we're not recognizing the day. But when we explain the intention behind it, then it's a satisfactory explanation, as long as we're living up to it.
And to Terry's point, we're open for some holidays like this, and not for others, so is that an issue?
So Indigenous Peoples Day, right? What's the other one?
And so the other holiday that traditionally we've gone back and forth on, depending on what day of the week it falls, until we eventually landed on, is Veterans Day. There were days in the past when we were, or years in the past, when we were open on Veterans Day. That when it falls on a weekend, it becomes problematic, especially if it falls on a Sunday, then it's super problematic. And we have now gotten into a pattern over the last several years of not.
Was it indigenous people?
No.
Okay, that's important to know.
I kind of like the idea that for these holidays in particular, the library being open in terms of our mission to be a community gathering place. They seem to be especially important community occasions. And even though the YMCA has become a venue for many given event recognized on Juneteenth and so in the Springs, I think it's still appropriate that the library is available as a gathering space on this day. I would stay open.
Is there a way to maybe do a program, a visitor, a lecture, a program, like if
But
it's
there is absolutely, yep, yeah.
related to the topic of the day?
And I just bring it up just because we've gotten this feedback. It's-
But I think that would,
I agree.
that would be my response to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
these are days of community gathering and the library is a place for that.
And that's exactly how I respond. Like the crushing.
Other ways to celebrate the closing. And maybe we do special programs for kids that are in the, or not special programs, but have display.
Well, I mean, hundreds of people signed up for summer reading on Juneteenth,
Yes,
and
yeah.
while I don't know that it's a direct correlation, it provides education and it provides access. I mean, we gave away almost 200 books that day alone.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you that it's not valuable to be here. I can just tell you,
Right.
like, and we have book displays that all of those hundreds of people that came in to sign up for some reading got to see our book display for Juneteenth. Like, it's not, it doesn't have to be just a program and an event. It's not,
Right,
like,
there's,
it's not.
there's opportunities for
Right,
different
for
kinds of
people to
learning.
self-direct and to experience things. Yeah, I would not say it's not worth it.
The only caveat to that is when the holiday happens to fall on a Sunday, then it becomes kind of administrative. Just in terms of premium pay on top of premium pay, scheduling. But I think that would be the exception to, if those holidays that we were traditionally open fall on a Sunday.
Just one note from like a payroll perspective. For adult services, for example, if they have, the full-time librarians are the ones who have to do the programming. So if they had to work on the day, the premium pay is capped. And a lot of them, some of them make more than the cap, or it's not, they wouldn't necessarily get time and a half. So for them, the pay is not worth it. So they would get the vacation time, which is great. But again, if they're working on a day they don't normally work, it's not super, you have to sort of force them to do it. So,
Well, it sounds like the board is trying to keep it the way it is. Is there anything else that we should be looking at on the calendar or?
I think those were the main things. I think it's a rare year and a happy one when we don't have to mess with the April times for the budget.
Usually that's a much longer conversation.
Absolutely.
There's no other changes proposed. All in favor?
Aye.
Last thing is the schedule of fines.
Sorry, that didn't make it into the packet, but Don's gonna bring it up on this. And this is, something that doesn't change all of that often. The major changes in recent years have been when we removed fines and fees. And the most recent one that still lives on our list here is for faxes, which we are able to provide a service now that doesn't require any fee at all. So that would be the only change as to, I believe that's right.
Collection.
Oh, and collection agents, since we don't send people to collections. So the changes would be to remove.
I ask, so we do collect fines,
We don't,
For
We-
replacement
we collect
costs.
fees for replacement,
so if you.
Right.
Okay,
but we don't collect overdue fines or anything. But if you keep something out for too long, it goes to a loss status and we'll charge you. In the past, we would have, if you didn't pay that, we would have sent you to a collection.
Questions? If not, I will take a motion to changes in fees for faxes and the part about the collection. There's a second. All in favor? There's nothing else we need to do. Adjourn. This organizational meeting. Regular meeting. The first item is the approval of the June 2026 meeting minutes. There were some changes. Did those make it into the final packet?
They did, it mainly involved the numbering and moving the order of things. We rearranged the order of the presentation of the audit at the top and then the original meetings that was there, but it was part of the top.
Do you have any other questions or? Not, so take a motion to approve the minutes.
I need to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second? Thanks, Terry. All in favor? Have approval of the expenditures. Request for reallocation.
You scroll back up to the end. Oh, wait.
First.
Oh, yeah. This part here. Request for reallocation. In the actual report, you'll notice that there were a few that prior to a reallocation, we would be overspent slightly, and so this gets us all. Most of them, they're, for printing program expenses and postage, these are all fees for services. There was a surplus of professional services, so it's logical. Money from that line to these, equipment, repairs and maintenance are similar operations expenses. So it makes sense to disability insurance is really, it's a very, very small part of the budget, so any expenditure almost puts us over, and it's something that we budget for, but rarely have to. It's a little bit of a surplus in health insurance, since there's expenditures that make sense.
questions about the reallocations?
I was sort of wondering, so do you have a reason why there was a lot of money left over in professional services with executive?
We, the last couple of years, we've used a lot of lawyers because we had the business with the sale of the land and review of the handbook and some policies. And I think that's the major thing that we didn't spend this year.
So we'd like to make a motion to approve the reallocations. All in favor?
It may also be the case that some of those lines where we were overspent might actually include, and Eric and I might have to talk about it before we talk to the auditor about it, some expenditures for this fiscal year, which were prepaid the previous year. Some of it may come out, but as adjustment.
Next, we have prepaid checks, 74832 to 74838, totaling $2,690.65.
I asked just a question because maybe you never noticed it before. The New York Times amount, that happens how often? $12,625.
That's New York Times All Access, that's a digital material.
Right, so that's an annual fee.
Yeah,
It's annual,
Yes.
okay, so that's.
And that's one of those expenses for this year that was. Or will it? No.
I pull a lot of, like, the ones that are for next year, I don't include
Okay.
on the budget report, I'll put them in next month. So you'll see, like, electronic services will have a lot next
A
month.
lot.
There's a lot of stuff that went out this month. Let's check.
And then we have the March warrants, check 74839 to 74934, totaling $229,456.40.
That we approve the prepaids and warrants.
Mary, is there a second? Second, thank you. All in favor? Next, we have approval of the financial reports, the prepaids and the warrant summary sheet, the budget report. And the income report. Oh, Catherine. Is that the items that you mentioned? I don't want to give it away.
These are, so if children and read 900 minutes, they earn a very special beach towel. You can't buy it. Only kids can get it. Well, teens can earn it too, but it's hard. So we've done t-shirts the last few years, and this design Gina created a few years ago. It's our custom summer reading logo. We put it on everything. It's the same every year. So even though the theme changes, our custom logo is the same. And like I was somewhere in Albany last week and saw a kid wearing one of our shirts. So
that's so
they get
great.
around. But we were like, everyone has a shirt, so we thought we'd try towels this year. It looked like a lot of money, but we bought a lot of towels. So, and we've given away a lot.
So that's what the Friends $2,000 donation. What were the flowers for?
The flowers are the hanging baskets.
Oh, outside.
And that $2,000 paid for the flowers and some of the time.
has any other questions or comments, I'll take a motion to approve the financial reports. Good question, Dean. Oh. Thank you, all in favor? So we have the president's report. So, last month we talked about the Henry Street Bike Lane project. We sent a letter to the council on June 12th, and on July 2nd, we met with Commissioner Cole and members of the planning department to kind of talk about where that project sits. It sounds like what's happening now is they're looking for funding to do an engineering study because there have been changes. And once that's done, they'll have a project budget and there'll be opportunities for stakeholder engagement. And I think they're expecting kind of a robust process for that. So it's probably the end of this year or early next year before that happens. So it's kind of a holding pattern for now. How much do we want to dig into what happened on Friday?
I don't know, do we want to talk about that in this meeting or next one? And, we seem to be, I mean, as you all know by now, I think that we planned a program that we got a lot of feedback from the community in the form of asking us for reconsideration. Some of it was very thoughtful. Some of it, much of it was not actually. But so we tried to weed out the insults, and get to and took a hard look at what people were asking us to reconsider. And this was a program with an organization that's an animal rights organization that we've done so many of at the track, and we've done over the years dozens of programs about the track, and we've done dozens of programs about animals and with animals. So when the opportunity came along to do a program about the welfare of animals at the track, on its surface, it seemed like a logical thing for us to do. We maybe could have done more diligence about making sure, about realizing how the program might actually be not just controversial, but in some aspects of the video kind of incendiary, actually, just because of the people who were presenting the program and the name of their organization and the way the program is titled, which was the same as the organization, to make it seem as if, because this is sort of an advocacy and activist organization, and the way the program was packaged made it appear as if we were taking a side rather than presenting, rather than being a kind of neutral place to have a conversation, because one side of the conversation was. So what we did after a lot of reflection and reading a lot of these and a lot of couple sleepless nights, to be honest, thinking about it, because there are lots of things we don't want to. We knew that whatever way we decided to go with revealing whether to go forward with this was going to be disappointing and perhaps angering to somebody, no matter what we decided to do. There were staff on both sides of the issue. There were community members on both sides of the issue. And so what we decided to do was take a step back, cancel or postpone the program as it was, offer the presenters an opportunity to still use the space without the library endorsement, which is something that it was a 501c3 organization with some local ties. They could have used the space and it would have moved from a library program calendar to a public meeting space calendar. So we thought that was, and that's sort of how the first approach from we thought that would be a good compromise while we planned something in the future that maybe presented a broader point of view or this topic, which is very people feel very passionately about.
It's become more and more over the years. I mean, that's the other problem. And I don't think you could do a balanced program here in the library. I don't think you have space for that, frankly. I think if we did something like that, they wanted to do that, I feel like it would have to go somewhere else. And does the community at large understand the difference, maybe they do now, between a program sponsored by the library and just using the meeting room? And I'm not sure a lot of people do. I think they say, there's a program at the library, I'm going to this meeting at the library without any distinction.
Right, that does happen, absolutely. But we have all kinds of groups using this space.
Yeah.
You know, so, and we have a policy that says that all kinds of groups can use this space. And it is sort of a risk we take by having a space that's available to anybody. But as it turns out, when we offered this solution to the presenter, they had no interest in it. Without the library sponsorship, you know, the presenter said, "Oh, that's also what they offer me at Colony Library, and that doesn't do me any good because then I'm preaching to the choir." He wants. So as it stands now, the event that is scheduled this week is canceled. You know, they decided not to go forward on space and co-sponsorship of the program as it was originally presented. The idea that we may try to do something. There is a lot of, you know, if nothing else, what this controversy did do is spark a conversation, some of it very, like I said, some of it very thoughtful about the very issue that these people wanted to have a conversation about. A lot of it happened through our social media channels and was shared, you know, a lot of it is happening on social media, but as I said, there are some very thoughtful things out there on both sides of, not even potential, but I would say instead about which. So in one sense, in our failure, I don't know if it's a failure, we succeeded. It's sparking the conversation.
It's interesting if his motivation was to get the word out and to educate people, he could have done that without any sponsorship.
Well, you know, it is very, the interesting thing is, maybe Jamie has more information about the stats, but prior to the conversation blowing up with the anti people coming out, you know, anti this person's presentation, very few people were registered. Only 3. And it was, yeah, there were very, very few people who were interested in it before it became this kind of controversial topic, and that was the controversy that created. So he probably would have been not preaching to a choir, but preaching to a real folks who were there to counter his.
70 new Facebook followers.
Because on some of these issues, we do set our feedback mechanism on the Facebook page that says that only followers for 24 hours. Right. So we don't get like fly-by people just, you know, dropping in to, you know, drop a bomb and take off. You've got to actually be engaged with the library before. And that's why there's a program policy.
Yes. It's what I was gonna say.
I mean, it's
Further down, there is a proposed policy for us to look at. Don't have anyone here for public comments? Under correspondence other than related to the issue that we just discussed. So we'll turn it over to Ike.
So I'm sorry that at the beginning of the meeting, I didn't say welcome to Rob Peck to his very first board meeting. to jump down to Kelly's report and take our action. So, yeah, between Nurton and Rob, I think we're in a great place to start off our new fiscal year. We're very excited to have Rob, and excited to be able to promote staff from within so that there is a path for the advancement. Rob, you may recall, starting with us at Rose. We're going to 3 years ago as a part-time building maintenance worker. And we do know that Rick, before he left, was sort of hoping that we would create a path for Rob for advancement and all the steps, and it just turned out that that's the way that it went. So we had a committee of folks from within, and we also invited an outside kind of neutral point of view, but somebody who knows our building intimately. We had Paul Mays from around Mays Architects that we've been working with since the construction and multiple revisions and renovations of this. First name.
Well,
And the other news that I don't know if you've noticed, I mean, I noticed when I look out the window that there was a lot of trash that was behind our neighbors, which is not there now. It creeps back in because it's like when you discipline a child and they're good for a while and then there's then they creep back into the old habits. But we did have it was a pretty awful event during Belmont weekend where there was a spill of cooking oil from a receptacle that's behind Phillies on Philo, which is shared by all three restaurants in the road there. Noah's, Phillies, and I was going to say Peabody's, but it's not. It's Phillies. Yeah, somehow or other. And they had to change they have always collected oil to be recycled and taken away, but they had a change in their recycler, their vendor, and they used to have barrels, and now they've got a receptacle that they can just walk over and dump their buckets into. It's somehow the lid was left open on that, and we don't know whether it was rain that caused it to overflow, or whether when the trash company came, they knocked it over when they were taking a dumpster out, or a combination of both. But there was a big pool of used kitchen grease in the parking lot that people were driving through and trekking through. And it was sort of the last straw that made contact knowledge, people would say. Because we try to be good neighbors, and we know that for some, especially the Noah's people, there's not really an inch of space beyond their foundation. It's not our property. So they have no outside space at all along the property line, which is the back of the building, and to their back door, basically. So, so we over the years have let them maybe put things when they're not really harming anything, except when it's trash and it's construction debris, when it's something like this, we said you can't put that if it's going to create a liability for the library, if it's a health or safety issue. We don't want it here, but maybe other things. But this was kind of making exceptions doesn't seem to be working.
well, I heard a case where a kid fell into one of those and died. So it's a danger
Oh,
to be, have it opened. Yeah, it was a dapple restaurant.
into an oil collector.
Oil collection.
Is it a permanent situation? I noticed, I was very happy to hear that everything that doesn't belong to us was removed from the library's property. Is that permanent?
We'll see. I mean, we know on weekends, the trash overflows and it's in the bags, but they have been doing a pretty good job of coming quickly and cleaning it up. Right now, our issue seems to be, and it's a very odd property. I can 100% understand why people don't get it, especially new tenants in a building or new owners of a building would assume that there's some space outside of the building that belongs to them. Right now, it seems to be less of an issue with the 3 in a row on that west side of Lena Lane. And now we're back to having people from Hattie's pile stuff on library property. Sort of the line. And I did encounter the owner of Noah's that we dealt with when we sold their property last year on the other side of that little triangle, because they are also the owners of Wild Horse. He said he wanted to buy some property from us, so he said, well, I sold you all the property, I have to sell you what property you want to buy. And he pointed to the first row of parking spaces
Oh,
here. And I think I actually said, are you insane? But for now, I mean, the biggest issue really seems to be, I don't know, to me, it's like maybe my personal pet peeve is that it's illegal to smoke on library property. The kitchen workers and the clientele of the restaurants in the alley here off of library property when they smoke. And every morning I come in, their ash receptacle is moved across the line, and I'm really bad. So, we go back and forth. Because it is the way the law is written. It's illegal to smoke on library property, and the enforcement is up to us. And the fines that someone can incur for not enforcing would be fine.
Were there expenses to the library involved in remediating?
There were some, but not a lot. And I don't know, Rob, if you have more information about that. I mean, we did have some kitty litter that we took out there to help soak it up. And the whole thing will need to be restriped, and it probably needs to be resealed. But that was the thing that was gonna have to happen anyway, so it's hard to say whether this incident added to, maybe hastened it, because the oil did eat away at the paint and the cleanup. They had somebody from KPM Restoration come and do something with the cleanup, some remediation. And a lot of what they were doing, I don't know what they were using, went right down the storm sewer. But, which, not okay, but apparently, according to the T's, whatever remediation they did. So that's a long answer to say yes, but it's probably a cost that we would incur eventually.
Do you feel like you can, that the owners understand and you think there's a good faith effort?
I do now, actually, yes, because there are new owners and we have very few, if any, really issues with Bailey's. Historically, we had issues with the one in the middle, which changes. When it was Nashville, there were all kinds of issues. Now that it's got new ownership, we don't have those kinds of safety issues, but there was some confusion from the owner about where the property line actually was. But I think we've clarified. And with the Noah's people, I think, yes, he understands, but whether, and like I said, they seem to be working towards being a good neighbor now, whether that will continue remains to be seen. Seems to be working at the other end where we put up the big wall. I mean, that's a different kind of situation. On this end, unfortunately, we don't have that. We don't have that. Because there is an easement along the property line for access to the buildings. Not for parking, not for storing your trash, not for any of that kind of stuff, but it's just for access. I think the Noah's people are used to being able to pay for solutions. That's it, unless there were other questions. NILA membership, I just put there, we have an institutional membership, and all of the trustees can join NILA at a special NILA rate. The library will pay for that, but I and we don't have access to be able to do that. So someone, maybe you, Heather, I don't know, someone from the board needs to be in touch with NILA about the trust. They've changed their whole membership sign up and renewal situation a couple years ago. It's still a little bit of a mismatch.
So I said last month that I'd give a little bit of a overview summary of the space usage study to date, and how is it, like when we're busy, it's in the middle of the day, slow start, drop off towards the end of the day, which we've all observed, but we have the data. Again, this is just for the third week of every month. I like to preface that. And our data is only as good as the data that we give. So it's imperfect, but we've got 5 months of consistently imperfect data, but we do have a lot of data. So I'm not expecting anyone to come to any conclusions. I gave biggest overview facts that I have so far. Some of them are obvious. Programs drive people coming into our building. We were talking about Juneteenth. That day actually was one of our data days. So I did have it. It was only 200 less people in our building for a Friday on top of it, which is not our busiest day. So that was actually not a bad day. There's 331 people. There must have been simultaneous things going on, but it was also Mr. Bubbles Day. So I don't think you had 331 people.
If we did, don't tell the fire.
Yes. Well, that was the day. We also had a fire alarm.
That's right.
So that's what I have so far. We're going to do our 6th month of data collection beginning on Monday, and we'll just keep plugging away, and at the end we'll have some bigger analysis of the data and what you can do with that. Go from there. And then I also just wanted to point out for a future, we've talked about working on policies and updating them and stuff, and at the American Library Association conference, the council, which is kind of like the Senate, we'll say, for the American Library Association, they adopted what's called the Librarians and Library Workers Bill of Rights. And I did provide a link to that for you because they actually got it on their webpage. It's something to consider, that goes with the freedom to read and that sort of stuff. So it's a foundational document that perhaps one of the resolve clause was to read it and perhaps endorse it and fold it into your library work. That is not something we have to do, but the opportunity to consider it in the future. Yeah.
All right, unless you have any questions for me.
I think you talked about it already, and sorry, I apologize. How does the prom book lab work? What does that look
So
like?
Jack Scott, who recently left the Southern Adirondack Library System, had an opportunity. There was a press release on it. The United Way came to Sal's, Upper Hudson Library System, Schenectady County Public Library, through the Capital District Regional Planning Commission to have digital literacy money, and it had to be So Jack asked libraries potentially what we would want, and it had to be to help people increase their digital literacy skills. I believe it was supposed to be outreach or for communities that typically wouldn't come into like lower literacy levels. So we asked for 2 laptop computers for Marianne Rockwell's English language learners, and we asked for a mobile Chromebook lab. We did not get the 2 laptops, but we did get the Chromebook lab. So it's basically like a crate that looks like a box, carry around, and you can slide in 5 Chromebooks in it, and they can charge up that way, and you can make it mobile. So it can be used by anyone in this building. Like if Catherine and her team wanted to do a program actually in this room, she could have 5 Chromebooks and have it here, so it can be mobile in the building for digital literacy for her age groups, or it can be the outreach van can take it on the road and do some of the they're still calling it the programs that you had, the teaching of older adults.
Senior Planet.
Senior
Senior,
Planet.
yeah.
So that can be done at senior centers and other opportunities out in Greenfield or Wilton instead of having people come here. So it's just, I think we also might be getting a little projector so that if someone has a blank wall, they can also project on the screen and teach. So before Jack left Sal's, I believe he ordered all the stuff and we're just waiting to arrive, and Don will get it and we'll deploy it. So it's great.
I'd like to request that the Bill of Rights for library workers be on the agenda for our next meeting, please, for the first meeting. See the board about that.
I think I downloaded a copy, so I can circulate it to the board. Everybody to take a look.
We don't discuss it this month, but we just have to give you minutes for so.
Next, we have Dawn.
Not too much to report, busy with stuff that nobody wants to hear about. But things that, just put a few updates. Board reports, the board report reconfiguration is still in motion. It's turning out to be, well, it's turned out to be not have to be done by last month. So now we're kind of, or 2 months ago. So now we're kind of easing our way to rethinking how we're presenting the board and the documents and different things, so for accessibility purposes. So it's still ongoing. Hotspots, we're looking into re-offering hotspots. They're fairly popular, but they walk very easily too. We lost half of our, I think we only have 5, but we're down to 2 or 3 now. So we're trying to get a bunch more, not to lose them, but to spread the wealth. It seems like the population of the users are a small segment of people that reuse them over and over. So we're going to expand our offerings, see if we can reach other people for sort of more what we intend, but what we intend and what happens. Jay fixed their cookie update for our new pack, or not an update, but the cookies process. They're now not setting you to the tracking cookies, and if you opt out of the tracking cookies, or if you change any of your tracking settings, it will remember, it will retain that information, which that was the problem in the first month or 2 of the new pack site, so they fixed that. That's good. And numbers. Say that again.
this digital communications report from Gina, she's not with us. We used to get these
We did,
for a while,
I-
regularly, right?
that is true, and she changed the format for them, that gives a little more data based on all of the different channels that we're using. So I thought I'd share it with you. And you can see that Facebook is still where most people are engaging with us. We've got a really impressive open rate that's constant contact. Something that's it's almost unheard of, I think, in terms of an open rate.
That's a good question about, so I was just curious when I was reading this and then reading Don's report. Is there a lot of crossover between you and Gina in terms of reporting, or this is not anything you're?
No, it might fall under Brendan a little bit, which is IT group. But he tracks website statistics. We have 5 or 6 different properties, friends, or not the friends, but the search of a read and various subdomains and things. So we do track, we do have all the stats, I just don't deliver a lot of them all the time. But Gina specifically maintains all of these outreach, digital outreach type of things. So not much crossover really.
Trevor is not with us.
We're having a banner summer, super busy. Not that numbers are everything, but we have already surpassed last summer in summer signups, and we're only like 30%. So, we expected it would be a big summer. We bought a lot of towels, so I'm feeling vindicated. Anyone who knows me knows I love me, right? But our school visits, I think, really made a huge difference. The number of kids that come in and they're like, I saw you at school, and you know, it's a huge amount of effort to go into individual classrooms and do presentation. I mean, there are days that people did 6 presentations, and I mean, it's a lot, you know, but it works. Like that face-to-face contact and that personal invitation really does make a huge impact. So we're when I do stats at the end, I usually look at like kids per school, so I'll be able to see, like, we never got to see the kids in person at Geyser before, so I'm really excited to see the numbers and see if us being there in person really made it. Andrew went to the Pride Fest with Sarah and Jen O. Trevor did the same, so whatever, we were there. He's not here, so we got that. But we did a lot of outreach in June, and people were really excited to see us out and about, so. Lots of dinosaurs, so many dinosaurs.
Such a good picture. The one second from the left. It looks like he's being swallowed.
Well, one of the fun things about Dino Man is that he will give you great tips on how to get the best photo. Last time they came, his wife was like, lay down on the floor, and she put the dinosaur on top of me. It was really funny. Because he does a wonderful presentation, but he'll stay as long as they want, so everyone gets the photos they like. And they're bigger than you think.
So I did have a couple additions that didn't make it on here, and then Nancy set me up perfectly by asking about the New York Times. So as you can see, New York Times All Access and Newsbank are our most expensive electronic resources, and they're by far our most well used. So I really feel like they're worth it for us. And we are very mindful of the cost, and we get rid of things that do not have high usage in order to make up for that. For example, in June, New York Times All Access had 49,667 page views. So that's a crazy number to me. And Newsbank was at 5,016 just for June, and from January to June 2026, 37,000 page views, which surpassed the 2025 calendar year, which was only like 34. So they're really being used patrons wanted it, we delivered, so I feel really good about that. And the other thing that didn't make it into my report was Emily went to the American Library Association conference in June, and she presented with Doreen Hurston, who started Read to Recovery in San Francisco Public Library, so they presented together. And Jenna was there,
Stellar.
telling it was a good presentation, and so we're very, very happy.
Any questions?
Shall we do Kelly's report first, so that Rob is official when he does his report?
So we have some appointments, but I do have a correction.
Okay.
Chris Dreidel, the effective date for her resignation was June 22nd. And I put July on there, so it needs to be June. Other than that, just the.
So this is actually also under new business, but there are requests to appoint Rob Peck, working supervisor of operations, effective July 6th. Colby Trussell, building maintenance worker, effective July 6th, and Alex Collins, library clerk, adult services, effective July 4th. Thank you, Terry. I have a second. Second. Thanks, Nancy. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anything else that you want? Okay. Hey, welcome aboard. You want to share a little bit with us about your report?
Main highlight. Just some work on our cooling tower controls. Just kind of getting caught up on some of the upgrades that need to be done to match up with the other upgrades. Unfortunately, chasing older parts, they don't communicate. And finally, got a lot of communication situated where cooling tower is now communicating fine the other updates. So, yeah, that's just usual. Some stuff.
Not any special committee reports. Do we have any unfinished business?
We don't. I do have, I'm sorry, Katie, I missed it. Katie sent a text earlier about, when we were having a conversation about holidays, and I'm asking what we're doing about staffing on President's Day. And on those holidays that were open, we typically have one full-time librarian who's here as the person in charge. And there may be other full-time librarians in the department, but it's primarily, like I say, part-time people who don't get the holiday pay, who are scheduled on these days.
Does that answer your question,
Does
Katie?
that answer your question? Thank you. Sorry about that.
The other item under new business is the proposed library program policy. Packet. So there's the program policy, and then there was also guidelines and procedures for reconsideration of programs. We start at the beginning of this.
All of this new is, so are there things on here that have been reviewed already, or
No, it's all brand new.
it's all brand new? Okay.
It's brand new in presentation. It's not brand new in its concept. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while.
Going back to the point that Nancy was making earlier, I think it would actually be helpful to, right at the front of this policy, make the distinction between use of library space and those programs. I think that is something that people are confused about, and I know you're often assumed that if library space is being used, that somehow enforced by the library.
And we do have some wording about that in the meeting room policy that can easily be referred to in this policy.
Transferred over.
The libraries have similar policies, is there like a template or?
Some libraries do, many libraries don't, and what we're finding is that more and more, this is the way we're presenting information to people. And a lot of what's here is patterned after the way we would collect materials. So it's the same sort of principles in terms of selection of what goes into the collection versus selection of what we presented. There is I guess it exists when you're doing collection development, that people might assume that by adding something to our collection, that means an endorsement of it. That's not necessarily true, because if you look at our collection, you would see that if we were endorsing everything, we're endorsing everything, right? I think there's a difference in the perception, maybe, of what you find on the shelf versus if you're presenting it like a lecture in a program. That might carry more of a perception that this is a library endorsed idea presentation. If that made any sense.
I just want to say that the form was just literally like changing collection to
Right.
program, so that's not even, and we just had experience with what that might look like,
Right,
so that needs more work.
right. And we did, and I'm sorry, that also didn't make it. So we do have a process for people, for reconsidering library materials. If people find something in the collection that they find objectionable for one reason or another, we have a process for that in our collection development policy that requires that they fill out a form. The form comes to you. There's a process for response. And so that's what Jen is saying, that we've adopted for the reconsideration of the program. The tricky part about a program is that often, because of the way programs are announced, the turnaround time may have to be much shorter. Like in this case that we just had, we went through a process, but it was fast. It was quick because by necessity, in order to reconsider it before the program was actually going to go live. If we followed the process that we would for considering moving or removing something from the collection, that's a process that could take weeks, which is not a luxury. That time is not a luxury that we have necessarily.
So is that something that we need to take a closer look at in terms of how the timeline is for scheduling
Yes.
and marketing events, and then sort of figure out a timeline that, and the form did make it, actually.
Yeah, right, the
Some
form is in the packet, but it may not have a realistic timeline in
Right.
terms of
Yeah.
when we get a form to reconsider a program
Right.
to respond.
So it would be, I'm sorry, go ahead, ask your question. Is it then based on availability of space is one of the primary, right? I mean, in terms of, so I'm confused, so anywhere in here, is there something that says you need to present your proposal by the first of the month and then they'll be reviewed? And you could do it the following month or something like that,
This is,
for a program, somebody wanting to do a library program, is there a time frame?
That's a different form.
that's a different process.
This is for somebody from the public who doesn't want a program.
So the answer to that question is no, there's no timeline. People can propose programs at any time. And we do have a process that we deliver those to the appropriate department head to consider
Okay.
But what we're talking about now is if somebody asks us, like, we just had this, we announced on Monday that we're gonna present a program next Wednesday, and people say, hey, hold up, I don't think you should do that. If that were a book, if someone said, hey, hold up, which we actually have one this month, which I forgot to bring to you. Someone read a book, they think that we shouldn't have it, they follow our process, we're filling out a request for reconsideration. We do have a process for a timeline for getting back to them, which really is weeks, because there's a whole, because it involves many people. And we're just saying that and we want to have a similar process. We want to be able to respond if people have concerns, because we're not perfect, we can make mistakes, we can make errors in judgment, we could. So if we want to have a meaningful process for reconsideration for programs, we can't really have set a program, a date that we'll reconsider it, which is after the time that it's already.
Another distinction is development is that within programs, there are some programs that are developed in-house, right?
Most of them are,
Most
yes,
of them,
yeah.
So the library is itself developing programs, but then what happened with the horse racing issue was that somebody came asking the library to, in a sense, partner, correct, in endorsement, and that itself raises different considerations, I think.
It does. And on our program proposal form, so the form that you have here is the reconsideration. We do actually have a form for proposing a program as well, which asks people for their credentials, what they know about the topic, if you've got references, who can we call to, to check out. So there is a process for that, you're right, but it is different from something that's bubbling up from inside. Yes.
The statement in the draft that leaves out of me is the reason library programming will not exclude topics or speakers because they might be controversial. And clearly, one reason why there was a reconsideration in this case was because it aroused controversy.
Well, it was because it didn't provide a balance. And because but you're right, it was because it caused controversy. But the reason for the controversy for our reconsideration was that it aligned us with a point of view that with no countervailing point. But you're right.
I mean, if let's say we have a program about, as we have done, about LGBT issues, do we feel required to present the counter?
It might depend. It might depend on the nature of the program. So we did recently have another program which caused a whole lot of controversy very similarly, but that was different from. So that was that was a group of people who were coming in who were providing a legal service, which is different from coming in and providing, giving a lecture about the way. But yes, I mean, that's appearance.
Actually have a different kind of question. There's a section about accessibility and accommodations. Receive a lot of requests for accommodations as part of programming.
I wouldn't say it's often, and I think part of the issue is people don't really plan very far ahead. Like the one I think I would get most often is a sign language interpreter, in which case, if we have enough notice, we'll attempt to hire one. We don't have one. But we have a couple of people that we work with regularly that we can pay on a per use basis. But people, they have to tell us ahead of time, which
Right,
is,
they can't tell
you
you
can't
when
call
arrive
me
for the
at-
program.
yeah. Yeah, you can't call me at 9 AM for a 9:30 and expect me to get one.
Sure.
It's not.
But I was just curious because
And
we, we don't talk a lot about it, and
Right.
I know it's part of the strategic plan,
most
if they're successful and what is it.
Most things are things like, I can give you the noise canceling headphones, we already have them, like a lot of it is, I can get you a chair with arms, because these are not great chairs for certain. So like a lot of it is things that you would never hear about, because literally someone just does it or calls off and they just do it. And I don't think people even realize they're being asked for an accommodation, they're just doing nice things for nice, you know. But the ones that are more formal are usually things like that.
And we just, I mean, I sort of anticipate that we might get more of these kinds of requests because the way we're presenting the information about the program specifically says, this is what you can expect, these are the accommodations. Like if we let people know.
Yes, then they know they can ask, they know what to expect, and that they would need something, you know. So they can plan. So do you want to bring this back in September for?
Absolutely, and I think if there, I mean, this, I think it's a very useful conversation, so if there are more questions or comments about it, Jen's been working at this.
I have another draft.
Okay,
I was
that's
gonna
great.
say, I know you didn't have a whole lot of time with this, so I do wanna,
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I know that there wasn't a whole lot of time
Correct.
remaining before the meeting to flesh out parts of this.
Yes.
So maybe as we get closer to the next meeting, we'll look at a draft that's percolated a little bit. Okay.
It's my first meeting, so if you have something about it or discuss. Do such policies need to be reviewed by a lawyer beforehand for legal language?
Oftentimes we review, we do, it depends on the policy. This one, I don't know, that's a good question. We might have a closer look at it to see if there are legal implications.
And again, the only reason I'm saying is that this intellectual freedom has become a buzzword, and like people just pick it out of the context and then start scapegoating institutions and then go after them just to be
Yes.
that kind of safe environment.
Is there a plan, so the person who made the presentation explained to them what was happening and their response? Is there, are they, do you have, what is the next step with that? With the person?
So I don't know if there's any next step with that particular person. I mean, I think our next step internally might be to get with the adult services department and see if this, if there was an interest before in something related, there might be now, to see if we might be able to present something at a future date. I don't know, given the reaction that we've received from this person, that I don't find threats really ingratiating, so I don't, so the response doesn't seem to be like one that's gonna, entice me to invite it to be part of it.
Just coming from personal experience, I've worked in the thoroughbred industry for many, many years. He's well known in the industry. He's historically not open to having an open discussion with, but if we had a program here and invited him, he'd probably not be willing to do that. If there were opposing, trainers, breeders, whoever on the other side, unfortunately. Because I'd love for us to all have that conversation. But that doesn't mean there's not other people who will be.
Right, maybe there's someone else who can bring forward similar kinds of things and address them in a way that's.
There's been nothing in the media in terms of him taking it forward.
And I haven't had a chance to call back yet. I do have a call from a reporter from which my response would be basically to refer him to the announcement that we already made about the reason.
there's no further questions about that, our next item is an executive session.
Do you want me to stay on here for executive session, Heather, or do you want me to like send you my Zoom link?
I guess how does that work for you?
It's, this is one of our owners, so you guys can keep it.
And we can stop the stream.
Yep, it's up.
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind, we'll just keep you right where you are to avoid potential disruption to.
That's fine. If everybody could end up in one section of the room with the owl, that would be helpful for me.
So the eyes can see us, yes.
Yeah.